Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk. Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Crystal Kennedy, and this is the show that brings you the day's biggest movie news and, of course, insight into what it all means. Joining me, as always, is AMC Movie News Senior Editor John Campia.
Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to the show. So good to be here. Hello, Crystal Lee.
Hello, good to be here. We need a drum roll with that.
Yeah.
It's like a drum roll.
Some kind of fanfare.
And also our special guest today from thecinemassource.com, Dan Deevey.
Hello. How's everybody doing this morning?
Hello. All right, let's get started with this. As many of you know, Dark Knight director Christopher Nolan's next directorial project is Interstellar, originally written by his brother Jonathan Nolan as a project for Steven Spielberg to direct. The film is said to be about a heroic interstellar voyage to the furthest reaches of our scientific understanding. With the film scheduled to open in AMC theaters everywhere in November 2014, Nolan has started casting the film. Reports have emerged that Nolan has offered the leading role to the film to actor Matthew McConaughey. McConaughey comes off a very busy 2012 with films like Killer Joe, The Paperboy, Bernie, and of course, Magic Mike. John, what do you think of Nolan's selection of McConaughey for Interstellar?
Amazing. Look, I've been saying for ages, and in the midst of all this completely irrational Matthew McConaughey hate, that McConaughey is a great actor. He's not just a good actor, he's a great actor. I'm not going to say super high caliber Oscar, but he is a great actor. I remember, I think it was 2011 that Lincoln Lawyer came out. Still, tragically, so many of you have not watched Lincoln Lawyer. You should. I believe it's on Netflix right now. Grab it, check it out. And I've liked him ever since he was in Amistad, which I still think is my favorite Steven Spielberg film. So a selection like this is great. I think McConaughey will open a lot of eyes. What I can't wait to hear is a lot of these bandwagoners who, for no reason, who don't know what they're talking about, talk about how, oh, McConaughey sucks, but they love Christopher Nolan. I can't wait to hear how they do such a fast about face that now that Nolan has cast him, they'll go, oh yeah, McConaughey's awesome. Yeah, right. Get bandwagoners. Dan?
Is today April 1st? Is it April Fool's Day? And I just don't. Are you kidding? Really? An amazing actor?
Absolutely.
Really? Oh my God. I think
Absolutely.
He plays an amazing lawyer. I think A Time to Kill is one of the best movies ever made. And I do think that Lincoln Lawyer was, a decent movie that people should have seen.
To support your theory, I believe he was also a lawyer in Amistad.
And he was. He absolutely was. That man can play a lawyer like there's no tomorrow, but I can't see him as this. I mean, even in Magic Mike, which is a movie that should have been tailor-made for me to love every second of it, I was bored and a little creeped out by him. I found him just like, I don't know, there was something off about him, and I just didn't even want to look at him. Even though he looked great, it was like, ugh, no. So, and didn't he do a sci-fi, aside from Contact, didn't he do a sci-fi-ish type of film before?
I feel terrible that I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm glad you mentioned Contact because he was also great in that. But yeah, he was wonderful in that terrible movie Paperboy. He was wonderful in Bernie. And he came really close to getting an Oscar nomination for Magic Mike, which doesn't necessarily definitively mean it was good. But I think it adds to think. He's just one of those guys that I've always really enjoyed the performances he's even when he does. Part of the problem is that he's done awful movies. I mean, he has done a collection of awful movies. Of this, I cannot dispute. I will not even try to dispute Failure to Launch. What? No doubt. But when you put him in these types of roles, when you put him in a Lincoln Lawyer, or you put him in things like that, he seems to be able to elevate his game to the material he's working with. And sometimes, like in the case of Paperboy, I think he elevates his game far beyond the material that he's working with. So, but I get it that there are a lot of people who don't like him. Just for me personally, I've always appreciated him as an actor.
Well, I love the fact that I get to learn new things about you every time I come on this show, John, and I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Alrighty. Back in 2009, shortly before the release of their comedy Date Night, it was announced that Tina Fey and Steve Carell had signed on to star in another comedy together called Mail Order Groom. However, the schedule of both stars has kept the comedy on the shelf ever since. Now with Carell's The Office and Phase 30 Rock responsibilities behind them, it's now being hoped that the project can begin shooting in 2014. Mail Order Groom follows a naive single woman who can't find love and ends up with a husband from Eastern Europe bringing him home to the good old United States. Dan, after years of sitting on the shelf, is this still a good movie to produce?
Absolutely. Funny is funny. It doesn't matter when it happens, and these two are hysterical together. I loved Date Night. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. I thought it fit both of them perfectly. And I mean, these roles obviously are kind of tailor-made for them. I mean, that is Tina Fey. That's what she does. And Steve Carell, I mean, yeah, stick him in an accent, make him kind of silly and fish out of water. I think it's going to be hysterical.
Yeah, I've got to agree. Now, while I did not love Date Night, I really enjoyed it. And the best part of it was this incredible comedic on-screen chemistry between Faye and Carell. They were great together. And I remember thinking, but before I saw Date Night, I had heard the news about this mail order Groom movie, and then I saw Date Night, and suddenly I was really anxious for it. Now, yeah, look, they both got extremely heavy movie schedules. On top of that, at the time, they both had extremely popular television shows going on all concurrently. So now that those shows are behind them, I kind of wish they would start shooting even earlier than 2014, because that means we're probably not going to see Mail Order Groom till 2015 at some point. But still, I'm completely on board. Seeing these two together again, sign me up. All right, folks, listen, we've come to that point of the show for buy or sell. What's going to happen here is that Crystal Lee has a number of other issues in the world of movie news that she's going to read off, and Dan and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Crystal Lee, what do we got?
Several attempts have been made over the years to get a Richard Pryor biopic to the big screen. Martin Scorsese and Damon Wayans, who were trying before Pryor had passed away in 2005, eventually left the project behind. Then Bill Condon and Marlon Wayans gave it a shot with no results, and now it appears Academy Award-winning actor Forrest Whitaker is going to give it a try. It's being reported that Whitaker and Pryor's widow, Jennifer Pryor, are going to once again bring the legendary comedian's life to the theater. Whitaker is developing a script with Pryor's input. John, buy or sell a Richard Pryor biopic?
Oddly enough, I'm going to sell this, despite the fact that I am a huge Richard Pryor fan. When everybody talks about like classic great comedy concerts you can see on screen, they often talk about Eddie Murphy's stuff, and that's awesome. But Richard Pryor's Sunset Strip, so good. He's so funny. He revolutionized, but I just don't really get into, as I said with musicians, I don't get into biopics quite often over celebrities. I'm just not really interested in biopics about celebrities. So from a personal level, for that reason, despite the fact that I love Richard Pryor, I'm going to sell it.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because out of respect for Richard Pryor, I think this movie should be made. I think, if anyone's deserving of a film like this, he is. But I kind of agree with John where I don't see it being an amazing film. Maybe it's the people that are pitching it, that are attached, that I don't see them really fitting. Obviously, there's no one better than his widow to contribute to the story. But I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't scream to me amazing movie. I think he is deserving of one, but I don't see it really working right now.
As most of you know, the new Kick-Ass 2 hits AMC theaters everywhere on August 16th, and now a brand new character poster for Christopher Mintz-Plass's The Motherf-er has hit the web. As you remember, Plass played Red Mist in the original Kick-Ass film. The story for Kick-Ass 2 picks up as Kick-Ass's Aaron Taylor Johnson's insane bravery inspires a new wave of self-made masked crusaders, led by the badass Colonel Stars and Stripes Jim Carrey. Our hero joins them on patrol. When these amateur superheroes are hunted down by Red Mist, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, reborn as the Mother-Effer, only the blade-wielding hit girl Chloe Grace Moretz can prevent their annihilation. Dan, buy or sell this new Mother-Effer poster?
I think it's amazing. I mean, I just saw it today, and I think it looks exactly the way it's supposed to. But I will say that Christopher Mintz-Plasse will never be better in anything than he was in the You're So Hot videos with Dave Franco on Funny or Die. Like, I enjoyed Kick-Ass. I didn't feel the need to see it multiple times, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie, and I thought he was good. But he'll never be better paired with anyone other than Dave Franco. But the poster is great. The costume looks great, and he looks menacing, but also, silly. So, yeah, I think it's great.
I'm going to buy it. I think this poster looks amazing. And it fits so well in with the character that Plass plays. Seeing him go from Red Mist to full-blown villain now, I think this is great. It's a great poster. It's a great look. This is going to be a fantastic movie.
Shame and Hunger director Steve McQueen has a release date for his next film, 12 Years a Slave. The film is opening just in time for Oscar contention in AMC theaters everywhere on December 27th. The movie boasts one of the most impressive casts of the year, with the likes of Chiwetel Ejiofor, Michael Fassbender, Brad Pitt, Paul Dano, Paul Giamatti, and Benedict Cumberbatch. The story follows Northup, an educated and married black man living in 1853 New York. Northup was approached by two men about a job offer in Washington, D.C., but when he showed up, he was kidnapped and forced into slavery. John, buy or sell 12 Years a Slave?
Buy it. Absolutely buy it. Look, we said in the story there that they're setting this up for Oscar contention. This whole thing screams Oscar contention. And Ejiofor, I'm so glad he's got the lead in this. He is my favorite African American actor right now in the world. I've been in love with this dude ever since I saw him play the villain in Serenity, which is one of the main reasons Serenity works well. He was one of the creepiest, best villains ever. Now, I wasn't a big fan of his movie Red Belt, but he was really good in it. And, he was amazing in Reign Over Me with Adam Sandler. Like, I thought he actually deserved an Oscar nomination for that. So, overall, this movie sounds amazing. Absolutely, I buy it.
I'm going to sell it, knowing that everything that John said is probably true. It will probably be Oscar bait. I'm sure everyone will be foaming at the mouth over it. But as far as this director, I haven't seen Hunger, but I did see Shame, and I am ashamed to say that I was not at all interested in that film. And
if you can't like Shame?
If you can't hold my attention with a naked, well-endowed Michael Fassbender running around, you're never going to hold my attention on anything else. So I'm sorry, I got to sell it. I know you're all going to love it, but I'm selling it.
All right, folks, well, listen, we've reached that part of the show for Mailbag. Look, if you've got a topic or a question you would like us to address on air, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Send us your questions and comments, and we go through them. We get like 50 to 100 of them every day, so we can't get to all of them, but we do pick out a few. Chrisley's got a few of them pulled out of the mailbag. So, Chrisley, what do we got?
Chris Amat writes, "Hey guys, love watching your daily show. John, you are awesome.
Oh,
I too
wise man.
am a massive Smallville fan. What I want to know is, for the past year or so, I've been hearing a lot of talk of a Zoolander sequel. To this day, Zoolander remains as one of my top 10 comedies, and I was wondering if the rumors are true and your thoughts on a possible sequel."
The gasoline fight is one of my top 10 all-time greatest moments in a comedy ever. I mean, you've got Lone Star. Now you'll see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb. You got that. But amongst them is the gasoline fight. I love Zoolander. I thought the movie was amazing. Now, yes, Stiller has been trying for a long time. He's been trying since 2008, I believe, to get a sequel rolling. It does sound like he's getting closer and closer and closer. He's already made an offer to Lady Gaga. I don't know if she's accepted it or rejected it. Justin Theroux is set up to direct the film. Theroux wrote such films as Iron Man 2 and Tropic Thunder, which I thought Tropic Thunder was amazing. So I do believe we are going to see it. However, I don't know how imminent an announcement is, but I know Stiller wants it, they're working towards it, and I will be first in line to see it. Dan?
Yeah, I feel like over the years I've interviewed Ben Stiller a few times for other movies, and that's always the last question is, when is Zoolander 2 happening? What's going on? And his answer is always the same, which is, working on it, we're trying to put it together. And one of the really interesting responses one year was, he said, it's funny, everybody loves it now. Where were you when it came out in the box office? Why did it not make more money then? But yeah, I know he's working on it, and it's going to happen eventually. It's just a question of when everything comes together, I think.
Caleb Spocked writes, "Hey guys, do you think it's possible that we will ever see Galactus or Silver Surfer in any upcoming Marvel movies like Guardians of the Galaxies or Avengers 2? They were totally misused in Fantastic Four 2, and I think that Fox should hand over Galactus on principle alone. What do you think? Keep up the good work."
First of all, Caleb, thank you so much for the question. It's so easy for everybody to just self-righteously say, "Oh, on principle, you should just hand this over." Tell you what, Caleb, I don't like the way you drive your car. Hand it over. You, on principle alone, you should give me your car because I don't like the way you drive it. No, I mean, look, I'm glad you point out the biggest hurdle, of course, of having a Galactus or a Silver Surfer popping up in a Marvel movie is the fact that those characters, as you point out, are owned by Fox. So Fox Studios is going to use those characters, and they're not going to give them away because they know if they did something with Silver Surfer and Galactus the right way, it can be a property worth hundreds of millions of dollars to them. So they're not just going to hand it back over to Marvel. They paid a lot of money to get the rights to those characters, and they're going to use them as well as they can. Would I like to see like a Galactus or a Silver Surfer in a Marvel film? Silver Surfer more than Galactus. I'm not a big fan of these hyper universal size villains. Like I'm not really huge on Unicron, for instance, the Transformers universe. Not really huge on something like Galactus because what can you do with him really, other than that he's a floating storm cloud? I mean, what else can you do with him? So I think it's a little bit tricky. So I don't think you'll ever going to see it happen. And to be honest, I'm not really torn up over it. I'd like to see it, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it not happening. Dan, your thoughts?
First of all, I loved Unicron. You're crazy. Unicron was amazing. He terrified me to my core when I was like 6 years old. And secondly, it would be nice if things worked that way, if just by principle, it's like, well, you suck at that, so give it to me. That would be a great world to live in, especially in Hollywood.
But I would lose a lot of my stuff.
Well, yeah.
If that were the case.
Oh, God, yeah, me too. I'm going to retract all of that. But I think with the Fantastic Four reboot happening, is that happening? That is happening.
Yeah. So we've got just to highlight. We've Josh Trank, director of Chronicle, has been brought on to direct. Matthew Vaughn, director of X-Men First Class, is on as producer. So it's happening. So
I mean, if that's happening, then the chances of these characters coming back, I think is pretty good.
Probably not in the first reboot one, but I think you're right. I think eventually
they'll show up again.
They'll be there.
Yeah. So just keep watching for a Fox film to eventually refeature those characters.
Yeah.
Chandler B. writes, there was a rumor going around that a Bioshock movie adaptation was being considered, but even without any news about the project was tanked. Why? It's an amazing game with an amazing story and characters to back it up. Why was it tanked so quickly?
For a couple of reasons. Number one, all video game movies suck. They just have. They all have. That doesn't mean we aren't due for a good one, because we are due for a good one. And Bioshock may be a good one, but the literal story behind it is that they originally had Gore Verbinski on board to direct the Bioshock movie, and it was going to be rated R and come in at $200 million to make. At which point the studio came back and said, well, how about making it for $80 million? And the head of the game development company who had the final yes or no say about moving ahead with the movie just didn't feel they could make the movie they wanted to make for $80 million. And so Gore Verbinski left because he didn't want to have anything to do with trying to make it for $80 million instead of $200 million. And, if you know Bioshock, that's a movie that's going to take a lot of resources to put together the way that make the fans happy. But then the studio got to understand, to make a movie for $200 million, look, you and all your friends and I may have played Bioshock, but the vast majority of the people out there haven't. And if you're going to make a movie for $200 million, that means you have to have a movie that's going to make somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million to turn profit. And that's a huge, tall order for something that most people aren't aware of a Bioshock film. So it was tricky. It was weird. I still think, with all the rage of making video games into movies, I still think we are going to see eventually a Bioshock movie, eventually. But it's going to be in a different incarnation than what we're going to have it now. Dan?
I'm one of the vast majority who has no idea what he's talking about. I have not played the game. I know nothing about it. But I do agree that most movies based on video games suck. So knowing nothing about this specific film, I'm going to guess that that's the reason. That's all I got.
So hurt. I love Tomb Raider. It's my favorite. All right, sorry. John Bugiazzo writes, been thinking a lot about DC movies lately with Superman coming soon. Here's what I'd like to know. What's the hesitance to use the source material? I mean, the Dark Knight trilogy, you saw Joker, Scarecrow, Ra's al Ghul, and Bane. Yet in 5 Superman movies so far, you have Lex Luthor, Richard Pryor, Atomic Guy, and General Zod. Why not use Brainiac, Toyman, Bizarro, Livewire, Lobo, Metallo, or Mr. Mxyzptlk? What a mouthful. Why don't they tap some of these villains? I so hope Man of Steel begins to fix this. What do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, it's not Atomic Guy, it's Nuclear Man. I mean, come on, get it right. Now, other than that,
he had great hair, by the way. Can we just say that
he did
had great hair?
It was professional
Terrible
wrestler
villain.
Lex Luger.
Great
was
hair.
actually Lex Luger played Nuclear Man. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's look at the list, and this is why this is happening. With Batman, you had Joker, Ra's al Ghul, Bane, Scarecrow, all of these human, rooted in reality characters. That was kind of the keynote of the Christopher Nolan films. There's something very relatable for us as people. It felt more like yes, it was a comic book movie, but it was like an action drama because everything was kind of rooted in reality. Now let's look at some of these names that you list off for Superman. So you've got Brainiac, Alien. Bizarro, Alien. Lobo, Alien. Metallo, Alien. Mr. Mxyzptlk, little elfy strange dude, Alien. So what you have is you have these characters in the comic universe with Superman that are on a totally different type of vein than the ones you get with Batman. With Batman, these guys are all relatable, grounded, rooted in reality type of characters. With the Superman villains, you have a lot of very fantastical types of characters that are a little more difficult to bring. Now, look, they work great in the comic book, but I've always said you have to understand, and a lot of people don't get this. Just because something works in a novel on the printed page, or just because something works in a comic book on the printed page, does not mean that will translate well onto the big screen. Doesn't mean it won't. It just doesn't automatically mean it will as well as it does on the printed page because it's a different medium. And I think that's why we've had this hesitation to use characters like Mxyzptlk or Lobo or guys like that. I think that's the source of the hesitation. Doesn't mean it can't work, but you're asking me why haven't they done it? I think that's why they haven't done it. Dan, different theory?
I think that it boils down to how much screen time does it take to explain this character. Because
yeah, good point.
I remember talking to Patrick Stewart when First Contact came out, and the question came up like, okay, well, obviously you're going to do another film. When's Q going to be the villain? And John Delancey played Q on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he was loved by everybody. Everybody loved him, but he was part of this strange, omnipotent continuum that was very hard to kind of pin down as to exactly what he was. And Patrick said, as great as it would take too much screen time to explain who and what he is.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you look at these list of names, watch Smallville, because Smallville had most of these villains there. And the reason they were able to was because they had so much more time to introduce characters and explain who they were. When you're dealing with a movie that's 2 hours, 2.5 hours max, and even at that, that's a lot, it's not a lot of time to explain where someone comes from, why they have the powers they have, and all those things. I mean, Mxyzptlk, what? How would you possibly?
Yeah,
I mean, it would take 2 hours
Mxyzptlk?
just to explain what he is.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you probably won't see these characters in film. But again, go to Smallville. Smallville, luckily for the Superman story, you have Smallville, 10 years. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, and to your point, a lot of times in Smallville, which is not Superman, it's a different universe, but still, you had characters that sometimes would be on for like one episode. You touched on them and they were gone, and that you really didn't get any sort of feel for what and who they were. And if you did that on a movie, you would leave us as film fans really, really wanting, like really upset because they hardly touched on this guy. So it's a tricky thing to do. Yeah. All right, folks, listen, we've gone overtime. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, listen, while I've got you, stop what you're doing. Take a second and click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And go on out and see a movie tonight. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater and showtime information, as well as getting all of your movie tickets. If you'd like an audio-only version of this show, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and our Stitcher Radio. And once again, don't forget to click that subscribe button. I want to thank, as always, our very lovely host, Miss Chrisley Kennedy.
Thanks for having me.
Our very special guest from thecinemasource.com, Mr. Dan Deavy.
Thank you very much, sir. Pleasure.
And thank you most of all to you guys. Listen, the most important part of this show is not what we have to say, it's what you have to say. Make sure you jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we discussed here today. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your support. And until next time, my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.